Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone, and he was shooting. He was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident. What is your reaction? And you are an elected official. What can you do about it?
Well, look, I don't think there's any question a majority of Americans want President Trump and ICE to go in and apprehend the...
Why this story is different. To understand what is happening in America right now, headlines alone are not enough. Headlines often trigger emotions, but they hide context. And some stories are not just breaking news. They expose the mindset operating inside the system itself. The death of Alex Peretti is one of those stories.
Illegals. That's what President Trump campaigned on, and he's doing exactly what he said. I look at what happened in Minneapolis versus what happened in Washington, D.C. When President Trump sent the National Guard into Washington, D.C., the Mayor Muriel Bowser, supported that. She worked, her local law enforcement worked with the president, and in a short period of time, they have really been successful in reducing the amount of crime in Washington, D.C. That was a big success. Fast forward to where we are in Minneapolis. We have a governor, an attorney general, and a mayor of Minneapolis who are getting people jacked up, trying to get them, convinced that this is, some type of illegal raid, that all their lives are threatened, and they've got all these white liberals coming in, trying to run over ICE, trying to, spray them and do everything to disrupt. And
this was not just a shooting during a protest. It was not merely a law enforcement encounter. And it is absolutely not just a political talking point. This was an incident where law, power, narrative, and human life all collided in the same place. And the most disturbing part is that what followed this collision raised more questions about the system than it answered. Before we begin, if you want to follow stories like this, stories that mainstream media often covers only at a surface level, please like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. With Chris Show, we try to bring you updates that don't always make it to primetime panels. Now let's move to the core of the story, step by step. First, the atmosphere in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is not a random location. This city already carries a history when it comes to protests, policing, and public trust. So when the presence of Border Patrol and federal agents increases here, people naturally become alert. Cameras come out. Phones start recording. And in America, that is not unusual. It is a protected right. In this environment, a peaceful protest was underway. No rioting, no fires, no active threat. People were simply present, observing, recording, documenting. Alex Peretti was one of them. Alex was not an activist leader. He was not a professional protester. He was an ICU nurse working at the Minneapolis VA hospital. Every day he worked with veterans, people living with physical and mental trauma, people who had already faced the heaviest consequences of the system. Alex worked for those people, and everyone who knew him says the same thing. He was calm, helpful, and when someone needed help, he didn't step back. That matters, because the narrative built later was the complete opposite of who Alex actually was. During the protest, aggressive force was used against a female protester. Pepper spray, physical pushing, a brief burst of chaos. In moments like this, people usually do one of two things. Either they step back, or someone steps forward to try to de-escalate. Alex chose the second option. He moved forward. No slogans, no weapon display. He had a cell phone in his hand. He was recording. And according to witnesses, he only wanted to help the woman get back up. That is the moment that later became part of history. Here, emotions need to be set aside and only documented facts matter. Multiple bystander videos, later reviewed by independent outlets, clearly show Alex did not have a gun in his hands. He was holding a cell phone. He was not charging toward officers. He was not threatening anyone. Despite this, Border Patrol officers used pepper spray on him. Then, he was taken to the ground. Multiple officers surrounded him, and then shots were fired. According to reports, at least 11 bullets were discharged. Alex died on the ground. At this point, a natural question arises, and it is not political, it is logical. If there was no immediate threat, why was lethal force used? Just 2 hours after the shooting, the Department of Homeland Security released a statement. The core claim was that Alex approached Border Patrol officers with a firearm, and when they tried to disarm him, he violently resisted. If you read only that statement, your conclusion would naturally be different, because words written with authority often feel credible. But the problem begins when the evidence does not support the statement. CBS News and other outlets analyzed the bystander footage frame by frame. What they found was completely different from DHS's claims. In the videos, Alex's hands are clearly visible, one holding a phone, the other empty. The gun remained in its holster the entire time. There is no moment where he reaches for it or attempts to draw it. 2 eyewitnesses submitted sworn statements. They said Alex was not resisting. He was only trying to help the woman. They did not see any action that would justify lethal force. This is where public trust takes its first major hit. DHS also claimed that medics immediately provided medical aid after the shooting. But a pediatrician who was present, and who later submitted a court declaration, stated that no CPR was being performed. Alex was lying on his side on the ground, with officers standing around him. This contradiction disturbed people even more, because now the issue was not just the shooting, but what happened afterward. Within hours of the shooting, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller referred to Alex as a would-be assassin and a domestic terrorist. These statements were made without a completed investigation, without charges, without publicly presented evidence. That is when many people began to feel this wasn't just confusion over facts, it was image control. Here, a legal point must be understood clearly, and it does not need to be complicated. Under Minnesota state law, a person with a valid permit may legally carry a handgun in public. Alex had that permit. Local officials confirmed this. The gun stayed in its holster. It was never used, which means that mere possession of the firearm was not illegal. This is where the gap between official narrative and legal reality becomes undeniable. At this point, a statement from FBI Director Kash Patel enters the picture. He says that no peaceful protester brings a loaded firearm, and that bringing guns to protests is illegal. Spoken with authority, the statement sounds convincing. But when people recheck the law, confusion deepens, because Minnesota law does not support that claim. Alex was a lawful permit holder. The firearm remained holstered. It was never used. At this moment, many people feel that statements are no longer explaining reality. They are shaping it. Then the story takes an unexpected turn. On Fox News, Maria Bartiromo, typically a strong supporter of the Trump administration, raises a direct question on live television. She asks, if the gun was never used, what exactly was the threat? James Comer's responses appear hesitant and defensive. The topic shifts. Blame moves toward local officials, but the core question remains unanswered. This moment matters politically, because when pushback happens even in friendly media spaces, it means the narrative is cracking. What followed was even more damaging for Trump. Organizations like Gun Owners of America openly stated that the Second Amendment applies even during protests. Congressman Thomas Massie said lawful carry should not become a death sentence. Platforms like Barstool, which appeal largely to conservative audiences, also began asking questions. This was no longer a left versus right issue. It became an issue of consistency and principle. Amid all of this, people wanted to know more about Alex Peretti, and the picture that emerged did not match the official labels at all. An ICU nurse, a VA hospital worker, a person who believed in science and care, no criminal history. That contrast hit people emotionally, because when the system's narrative is so disconnected from someone's real life, questions are inevitable. Experts warn that this case will have long-term consequences. Public trust in immigration enforcement and law enforcement is already fragile. Incidents like this erode it further. The most dangerous issue is precedent. If lethal force can be justified despite lawful behavior, drawing lines in the future becomes much harder. Alex Peretti's name may not remain just a headline. This case could become a reference point, a moment when America once again asked how far the use of power is justified. This is not just politics. This is not just protest. This is not just one administration. This is a test of law, accountability, and humanity. And the most important question is, who will answer that test? What do you think? Was this a failure of training, or a failure of accountability, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you don't want to miss long-form, context-driven stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.